Have you ever watched your wife look another man straight in the eyes and laugh like you're nothing? Because that's exactly what happened to me at a party in Newport Beach, in a house I was paying for, surrounded by people waiting to see if I'd break. Her hand rested on Logan's arm as she smiled at the crowd and said, "I could dump you right now just for a little excitement." Everyone stared at me, expecting the weak husband, the predictable man, the quiet provider who never fights back. But I didn't flinch. I took a slow sip of whiskey, met her eyes, and said, "Go ahead. If you want to know what happened next, hit follow, drop a comment, and stay with me. This story only gets darker from here." My name is Grant Maddox. I make a living bringing old buildings back to life. While other architects chase glass towers and shiny condos, I work on places your grandfather might have walked past. Brick cracked by time, wood worn by weather, porches that have heard 100 arguments and 1,000 quiet apologies. Charleston, Savannah. My days are dust, sweat, and history. It pays well enough. The bills are covered, the fridge is full, there's a little put away. I never needed yachts or private jets. As a man, my list was simple. A safe home, a woman who was on my side, and a life that actually meant something. That's it. Security, loyalty, respect. I didn't think I was asking for much. Men like me don't want the world. We just want a corner of it we can protect. For a long time, I thought I had that. And then I met Ava Sinclair. I still remember the first night I saw her. A small art gallery in Charleston, nothing fancy. Brick walls, cheap wine, good music. She stood in front of a painting like it was talking only to her, hands moving as she explained color and light to some bored couple. Her eyes were alive. Not just pretty, sharp, focused, hungry for something more than 9 to 5 and Netflix. We started talking. About old houses, peeling paint, creaking floors. About how some places feel like they remember you. Ava didn't roll her eyes at that. She leaned in, asked questions, finished my thoughts. I told myself, this is it. This is the woman I can build a life with. The fire in her eyes looked like passion, not ambition, like love for beauty, not love for status. Looking back, I know better. But in that moment, I fell in love with the fire in her eyes. We found a 1920s house in Charleston that everyone else called a project. I called it home before we even signed the papers. The place was tired. Old floors, sagging porch, walls that had seen too much. I spent months bringing it back, late nights sanding, painting, fixing things no one would ever really notice. Ava picked the furniture, the art, the colors. I picked the beams that wouldn't collapse while she slept. The first night we moved in, we lay on the floor eating takeout, boxes everywhere. She laughed and said, "Can you believe this is ours?" And for a while, that sentence was enough to make every sore muscle worth it. I started taking more projects, working later, saying yes to things I wasn't excited about just because they paid well. Ava was getting used to nicer restaurants, weekend trips, expensive dresses. I told myself, I'm happy to provide. That's what being a man is, right? Pay the bills, carry the weight, smile and say it's no big deal. It didn't happen overnight. It never does. At first, it was just new names in her stories. People from Los Angeles, Newport, guys who built something big in tech, women who only vacation in Europe now. The conversations shifted, less about paintings and old houses, more about square footage, which rooftop bar, who sat in VIP with which minor celebrity. She'd come home buzzing, talking fast, saying things like, "Grant is so traditional, he doesn't really get the new world, but it's cute." Everyone would laugh. I laughed too. That's what you do when your wife makes you the punchline. You take it. You tell yourself she's just joking. But every joke left a mark. Tiny cuts. Easy to ignore at first. Then one night, sitting at our dining table in the house I'd rebuilt, listening to her brag about someone else's life, I realized I felt small, in my own home, in the one place a man is supposed to feel like he matters. It started showing up in her jokes, little lines she'd drop in front of people. Grant would rather stare at old bricks than live a little. Everyone laughed. So I did too. That's what you do, right? You play along, You become the fun, easygoing husband who can take a joke, even when you feel it land like a punch to the ribs. Then came the comparisons. Logan just bought a new Tesla on a whim. You're too careful. Too careful. She said it with a smile, but every man in that room knew what it meant. Not bold enough. Not exciting enough. Not enough. Period. I started to notice a pattern. I was the one paying for dinners, trips, drinks, and somehow I was also the one being framed as the boring weight holding her back. I didn't say anything. But somewhere between old bricks and too careful, I realized something ugly. The respect in her eyes was fading, and once that's gone, everything else is on borrowed time. The first time I met him, she was glowing. "This is Logan," Ava said. "He's working on this huge new venture in LA. He gave me that practiced handshake, firm, polished, a little too aware of itself. His smile was perfect. His eyes weren't. They slid past me and went straight to the house. "Nice place," he said, looking around like an appraiser. "You could flip this for a lot more, you know?" It wasn't a compliment. It was an equation. Ava laughed, proud. "Logan understands opportunity. Grant is more sentimental." Sentimental. That's the word you use for an old dog and a broken chair you should have thrown out. They shared a look after she said it. Not long, not obvious, just long enough for my gut to tighten. In that moment, it hit me. This guy didn't just want my wife's attention. He wanted my seat at the table, my view, my life I had built, brick by brick, before his name ever entered our house. For a while, I did what a lot of men do. I tried to talk myself out of what I already knew. I told myself Ava was just enjoying life. New friends, new places, fine. I didn't want to be the jealous, controlling husband. I'd look in the mirror and think, maybe I'm just insecure. Maybe this is some midlife crisis in my head. I'd sit in our living room, look around at that old 1920s house and remind myself, we built this together. She wouldn't destroy it. She wouldn't blow this up. But my gut didn't care about logic. It twisted every time her phone lit up and she tilted the screen away. Every late dinner with friends, every vague explanation, every new inside joke I wasn't part of, it added weight. I started checking the clock when she wasn't home, not obsessively, just enough to notice patterns. My head kept saying, trust her. My gut kept saying, something is very, very wrong, and you can only ignore your gut for so long before it stops whispering and starts screaming. Then came the Savannah trip. 3 days to finalize a deal on an old hotel restoration. Good money, big project. When I told Ava I'd be gone, she didn't sigh or complain like she used to. She smiled, too easily. "You work too much," she said, "but at least I get the house to myself." I laughed because that's what I'm trained to do. But that sentence, it stuck. At least I get the house to myself. On the drive out of Charleston, something felt off. The same way you feel when you're pretty sure you locked the front door, but you can't remember seeing the deadbolt turn. Savannah was beautiful, but I couldn't shake the picture in my mind. Our bed, our kitchen, our living room, without me in it. Not just empty, occupied. When I checked into the hotel that night, the room felt less like a place to rest and more like the waiting room for bad news I hadn't heard yet. The deal in Savannah wrapped faster than I expected. Most men would have stayed the night, padded the hotel bill, enjoyed a quiet evening alone. Not me. I just wanted to go home. On the way to the airport, I stopped and bought Ava's favorite flowers. Simple, nothing dramatic. The kind she loved before life turned into hashtags and rooftop bars. In the cab, I let myself picture her face when I walked in early. Maybe surprised, maybe happy, maybe guilty. But underneath all that hope, something else pulsed in my chest. A feeling I couldn't name yet. Only fear could understand. When I got to the door, hand on the knob, flowers in my arm, my gut whispered the sentence I had been avoiding for months. Whatever's on the other side of this door, you're not ready for it. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to turn the key. The door wasn't locked. That was the first wrong thing. I stepped inside. No music, no TV, no, "Hey babe," from the kitchen. Just silence. The kind that feels like it's waiting for you. I called her name once. Nothing. Then I heard it. Her voice. Soft. Breathless. coming from the walk-in closet down the hall. I walked quietly, flowers trembling in my hand. With every step, the house felt smaller, tighter, like it wanted me to turn around. Then I stopped, one step from the doorway, and I heard her laugh, a laugh she hadn't used with me in years. "No, he has no idea," she said. "He's so predictable." Predictable. The word hit so hard my vision blurred for a second. But it was the next sentence that ended the man I used to be. "I'm telling you, the moment Logan is ready, I'm done here." My hand almost slipped, and the flowers almost hit the floor. I froze. She kept talking, like my life was a podcast she was recording for fun. "Logan actually sees me," she said. "Grant is just a bank. Just a bank, not a husband, not a man. A resource she was ready to withdraw from one last time." Then came the sentence that burned itself into my memory. "You don't leave a bank until you've drained it and found a better one." I didn't breathe. I didn't swallow. I didn't even blink. The flowers in my hand felt like a joke, a tribute at the funeral of a marriage I hadn't realized had died. So I pulled out my phone and hit record. Her voice was steady, clear, confident. She wasn't confessing. She was bragging. And in that moment, something inside me didn't break. It switched off. I don't remember walking out of the house. I just remember leaving the flowers on the hallway table, like a little funeral no one was attending. I drove to a hotel a few miles away and checked in under my own name, even though the clerk didn't ask. Sat on the edge of the bed, shoes still on, staring out at a city that suddenly felt unfamiliar. You'd think that's when I'd lose it. Punch a wall, scream, cry, call a friend and fall apart. Nothing. Just a cold kind of clarity. The woman I loved wasn't in that house anymore. She'd left long before I ever got on that plane to Savannah. All that was left was someone wearing her face, managing her exit strategy. I played the recording again, not to hurt myself, but to make sure I never minimized it later, never gaslighted myself into, maybe it wasn't that bad. Sitting on that stiff hotel bed, I made a choice. I'm not going to beg, I'm not going to scream, I'm going to rebuild without her. The next morning I drove to Atlanta. Didn't tell Ava, didn't leave a note, just got in the truck and went. Howard Keaton, my family attorney, sat across from me as I pressed play on the recording. Ava's voice filled the room. "Grant is just a bank. You don't leave a bank until you have another one lined up." Howard didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. When it ended, he took off his glasses and said, "All right, Grant, what do you want?" I didn't talk about betrayal, didn't talk about heartbreak. That part of me was already gone. "I want to protect what I've built," I said, "and then I want to be free of her." He nodded once, calm, precise, deadly professional. "Then we do this quietly," he said. "No emotions, just facts." And right there in that office, I felt it. The shift. This wasn't about pain anymore. It was a demolition project. And I know exactly how to take down a structure the right way. But Howard wasn't done. Howard got to work like he'd been waiting for this call. We went through everything. Business contracts, property deeds, savings, investments, lines on paper that represented 20 years of early mornings and late nights. He reminded me of something I'd almost forgotten. A prenup Ava signed back when she still thought, "We'll never need this," was romantic. It was clear. If she cheated, she got very little. If I could prove it. Then came the restructuring. We moved certain assets into trusts with my name off the surface, tightened up business ownership, cleaned up anything that could be grabbed in a messy split. All while life at home stayed exactly the same. Same dinners, same small talk, same fake smiles across the table. She thought she was being clever, building her art fund in the shadows. What she didn't know was that every transfer, every skim, every little theft she was so proud of, Howard was logging. And the prenup she never bothered to read was quietly waiting. The bank she thought she was robbing was already bricking up its doors. Howard's advice was simple and brutal. Let her keep moving the money. We document everything. So that's what I did. I watched our accounts like a quiet accountant. Every time Ava shifted a little more into her art fund, I didn't confront her. I didn't block it. I just took a screenshot, sent it to Howard, and filed it away. She really believed I was blind, that I was the same predictable man on the phone call she'd laughed through. Funny thing happens when you stop seeing yourself as the victim. The same actions that used to break you start to look like evidence. Every transfer, every little adjustment she made went from theft to documentation, from her plan to my leverage. I wasn't the one tied to the chair anymore. I was the one watching her twist the rope. Click by click, transaction by transaction. She wasn't just stealing from me, she was building the case that would end the life she loved. And I didn't have to lift a finger to help her, except to hit save. While she was busy draining accounts, I started draining something else, my life out of that house. I rented a small apartment under the company name, nothing fancy, just honest walls and a lock she didn't have a key to. Then I started moving things, not furniture, not decor. The pieces of me she never cared to notice, my father's watch, old family photos, paintings that actually meant something. One item at a time, slipped into a bag, carried to the truck, driven to the new place. Every time I came back, the Charleston house felt less like home and more like a museum of her ego. Designer mirrors, showpiece chairs, things meant to impress strangers, not to live with. She never noticed what was missing, not once. Not the empty nail where a family photo had hung for 10 years. That's when it hit me. She only saw the shiny, not the meaningful, not me. So I kept going, quietly removing anything with a soul, until all that remained for her was the shell she chose over the man who built it, and she never noticed a thing. At home, I kept the mask on, busy, a little distant, but harmless. Ava would sit at the counter, glass of wine in hand, telling me about parties in Newport, dinners in LA, wild nights with her new crowd. Logan's name slipped in more and more, casually at first, then like he'd always been there. I'd answer with the same 2 words every time. That's nice. She took my silence as weakness, as permission. The less I reacted, the bolder she got. The jokes got sharper, the eye rolls more obvious. She'd talk over me, correct me, make little comments about how I wouldn't understand this world she was in now. It stung, sure. Any man who says it wouldn't is lying. But every disrespectful word was also a brick in the wall between us, proof I'd need later when the part of me that still loved her started to forget. Ava looked at me and saw a loser who'd never leave. She had no idea I'd already found the exit and was halfway out the door in my head. One night we had dinner with some of my oldest clients, people who'd been with me since the early days, when I was just a guy with a truck and a toolbox. It was a big night for me. Deals, referrals, future projects, all on that table. Ava showed up polished and loud. Too much wine, too fast. At first she was charming, telling stories, making everyone laugh. Then she turned the spotlight on me. "He's obsessed with work," she said, smiling too wide. "He'd rather stare at blueprints all weekend than take me to Malibu with Logan." The table went quiet. You could feel everyone's eyes move from her to me. I gave a thin smile, took a sip of water, and said nothing. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I'd already decided this wasn't where I'd fight. That night, she didn't just disrespect me as a husband. She undermined me as a man, in front of people who trusted me. And sitting there in that heavy silence, I knew one thing for sure. When I finally moved, it wouldn't be in anger. It would be permanent. Not long after that dinner, Ava came to me glowing. "There's going to be a huge party in Newport Beach this summer," she said. "Our place. It's going to be huge." She wanted everyone there, her new LA crowd, the Newport people, and just enough folks from Charleston to make it look legitimate. Old life and new life in one room, all staring at her. I said yes to everything. The caterer, the bar, the DJ, the decor. Every invoice that hit my email I approved without a word. If she loved an audience so much, she was going to have one when the curtain finally dropped. I called Howard, told him the date. We lined it up so all the paperwork would be done that morning. Trusts in place, accounts secured, divorce filed. All that would be left was for me to say the words out loud. Somewhere in the middle of those party plans, I realized there was no version of my future where she stayed. That night in Newport wasn't just a party anymore, it was the point of no return. The day of the party, Ava moved through the Newport house like she owned the ocean. Staff running around, lights being set, glasses lined up in rows. She was in the middle of it all, barking orders, fixing tiny details no one would notice. acting like the queen of a kingdom she didn't pay for. She wore a silver dress that caught every bit of light. It wasn't just a dress, it was a statement. Look at me. Only me. And right beside her, like it was already decided, stood Logan, laughing when she laughed, nodding when she spoke. He looked like a man trying on another man's life to see if it fit. I walked the house slowly. The balcony, the pool, the living room, the bar. Not to check the party setup, to feel the edges of the life I was about to step out of. I stood by the windows for a moment and let it hit me. I built this. Every paycheck, every project, every exhausted night put these walls around her. And tonight, I was going to walk away from all of it and finally be free. Right before the guests started arriving, Ava floated over to me. She gave me a quick, practiced kiss on the mouth. No warmth, just contact. "Try not to be boring tonight, okay?" she said, already half turned away. I looked at her, then at the house, then just nodded. "I'll do my best." In the inside pocket of my jacket was a copy of the divorce papers we'd filed that morning. My name, her name, the legal end of what had already died a long time ago. My phone buzzed, a text from Howard. All set. That was it. 2 words. No fanfare, no congratulations. Just confirmation that the exit door was unlocked. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and walked out to the balcony. The ocean was calm, the lights along the water steady and quiet. I stood there for a long moment, breathing it in, not the view, but the ending. I wasn't just saying goodbye to a house or a party. I was saying goodbye to the man who tolerated all of this. When the party finally started, it started fast. Music, laughter, champagne glasses catching the light. People spilled across the deck and around the pool like they'd been waiting their whole lives to be invited here. Maybe some of them had. Ava posted up near the bar, exactly where everyone could see her. Logan stood glued to her side, hand on the small of her back like he'd earned the right. They laughed together like a couple with history, not a fling built on secrecy and stolen money. I kept my distance, leaning against the railing, watching it all like a play I'd already read the script for. A few of my old friends from Charleston were there too. You could see it on their faces, the confusion, the half-formed questions. They noticed the way Ava tilted toward Logan, the way Logan acted like this was his house. I realized something simple and cold. Tonight wasn't just the end of my marriage, it was the line in the sand. After this, everyone in this room would be forced to decide, they stand in her world or they stand in mine. From where I stood, I had the perfect view. Logan's hand slid onto the small of Ava's back like it had been there 1,000 times. She didn't move it, didn't flinch. She just leaned in closer. They whispered, heads tilted together, laughing at jokes no one else got. That's the thing about secrets. They make people careless. At one point, Ava turned to a small circle of guests. Champagne in her hand, eyes bright, she said, "This is Logan. He's someone very important in my future." My future. She said it like I was already a story she'd outgrown. A few people glanced over at me, waiting to see if I'd react, if I'd mark my territory like a jealous husband. I didn't. I just took another sip of my drink and let a small smile curl at the corner of my mouth. They both genuinely believed I was standing on the sidelines, clueless. But the truth was simple. They weren't looking at their future. They were toasting the last night of it. Later in the night, I saw it forming, the little circle around her by the pool. The stage she loves most, tipsy, adored, center of attention. Ava started in on her favorite routine. "Grant is dependable," she said, dragging out the word. "Too dependable. Boring dependable." The group laughed. A few of them looked over at me, curious, half expecting me to play my usual role, the harmless, good sport husband who can take a public jab. Instead, I set my glass down and walked over. Didn't say a word. Just stepped into the circle of light with them and stood there, calm, hands in my pockets. She clocked me, but she was too deep into the performance to stop. Too sure of the script where I'm the punchline that never hits back. I could see it in her eyes, the moment she decided to push it further, to go for the big line, the one she had no idea was about to blow her whole life apart. She took a sip, laughed a little too loud, and went for it. "I could dump you right now for a little excitement, you know?" The whole circle erupted. Big, drunk, nervous laughter. the kind people use when they're not sure if something is funny or just mean. A few of them glanced at me, waiting for the usual, my awkward chuckle, my self-deprecating line to smooth it over. I didn't give it to them. I rolled the whiskey in my glass, listened to the ice hit the side. It sounded louder than the music, louder than the pool, louder than her laugh. I looked straight at Ava, not at Logan, not at the crowd, just her. Go ahead. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't smile. I just said it like I was agreeing to sign for a package. The laughter died in the space between us. Her grin froze, then cracked, right there in front of her shiny new world. For the first time in a long time, I watched her realize I wasn't playing along anymore. "Grant, don't be dramatic," she snapped, color draining from her face. I tilted my head slightly. "You wanted excitement," I said quietly. "Let's give everyone a show." I turned to the people around us, the friends, the clients, the leeches, the spectators. "Since we're all here," I said, "let me tell you about my marriage." A nervous chuckle or two. Someone shifted. Someone else cleared their throat. I kept going. All those lunches in LA, the weekend in Malibu, the jewelry that didn't show up on any of our statements. I watched Logan's face drain, like someone had pulled a plug in his chest. A few guests stared at him, then at Ava, then back at me. The air around that little circle got heavy. "This is Logan," I said calmly. "You've all met him tonight. What you don't know is, I've known about him for months." The party noise faded into background static. They thought they were watching me fall apart. They were actually watching the opening statement. I let the silence sit for a second. Then I twisted the knife. "You all know Ava loves art," I said. "What you don't know is she also loves her little art fund." I watched her flinch. "That's the private account," I went on, "where she's been quietly moving money. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. December, January, February." I listed dates, rough amounts, enough detail that the people who understood money went dead quiet. Ava's hand started to shake around her glass. "Grant, stop," she whispered. I looked straight at her. "You didn't marry a bank, Ava. You married a man." Her eyes glossed over like she was trying to rewrite reality in real time. "And just so we're clear," I added, "I didn't hear this from gossip. I have a recording. That cute little call you made in our closet, the one where you called me just a bank and laughed about not leaving until another one was lined up." A couple of people actually gasped. For the first time all night, she had nothing to say. I let that sink in before I dropped the last pieces. "The divorce papers were filed this morning," I said calmly. "So when you said you could dump me right now, you were a little late." Someone choked on their drink. I kept going. "Your things," I told her, "the ones you actually paid for yourself, which surprisingly isn't much, are at your mother's place. Everything else stays with the man who bought it." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. "Oh, and the joint accounts?" I added. "Frozen. Effective today." I paused. "Cards? Canceled about an hour ago. So if you were planning on checking into a hotel tonight, you might have a problem." The crowd reacted before she did. Sharp inhales, whispers, eyes darting. Ava looked stripped bare, like someone had just pulled the plug on the life support of her image. Then I turned to Logan. "You're taking care of her, right?" I asked. "You're the exciting one." He couldn't even look at her. Logan was the first to fold. He swallowed hard, glanced at Ava, then at the crowd. "Hey, this is between you two," he muttered, hands up like he'd stumbled into the wrong room. Then he stepped back. One step, then another, until he disappeared into the bodies around us. Ava reached for him with her eyes, but he was already gone. Her new circle suddenly discovered their phones, their drinks, the floor, anything but her. Nobody moved closer. Nobody put a hand on her shoulder. I set my glass down on the nearest table. "Enjoy the rest of the evening," I said. Not loud, just clear. And then I turned and walked toward the front door. No dramatic pause, no last look, no parting shot. Behind me, the noise started, her voice rising, someone trying to calm her down, chairs scraping, whispers sharpening. But that storm was in a house I no longer lived in. For the first time in years, my back was to the chaos, and I didn't feel the need to fix it. The first week after the party, my phone didn't stop. Text after text from Ava, like machine gun fire. I was cruel, heartless, ungrateful. I had destroyed her reputation, humiliated her, ruined her perfect life. She didn't mention the affair, didn't mention the money, just the fact that I'd stopped playing my assigned role. I sat in my new place in Charleston, bare walls, simple furniture, quiet, and read every message once, not to torture myself, to remember. Then I archived them. No reply, not a single word. There was a time when her anger would have sent me driving across town at midnight, ready to apologize for things I didn't do just to keep the peace. Now the silence after each notification was the best part. I realized something important that week. My silence used to mean weakness. Now it meant boundaries. I wasn't ignoring her to punish her. I was finally choosing myself over the noise she lived in. After the anger cooled, the tone changed. The messages stopped screaming and started pretending. Can we just talk like adults? Newport got out of hand. It was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. That's what she called months of lies and stolen money. When I didn't answer, she shifted again. I can change. I'll cut off Logan. We can fix this. She dragged out the highlight reel. Our first house, that night on the floor with takeout, the road trips, the inside jokes. She tried to weaponize nostalgia, to use my own memories against me. There were moments my thumb hovered over the keyboard, moments the old husband in me wanted to say, let's talk. But I knew myself too well. If I opened that door, even a crack, I'd walk right back into a building that was already burned to the ground. So I didn't reply. For the first time in my life, I didn't let good memories blind me to present reality. Love had a history. Respect didn't. Then came the voicemails. 3 a.m, my phone lit up on the nightstand. Her voice was wrecked. I have nothing without you, she sobbed. I can't work, I can't sleep, I can't breathe. She said Logan had blocked her. The friends who'd toasted her in Newport weren't answering anymore. The party was over, and the room was empty. For a second, hearing her like that, something in my chest twisted. I'm not made of stone. I did love her once. But here's the difference now. I finally understood the gap between consequence and cruelty. This wasn't something that just happened to her. This was the bill coming due. I listened all the way through. Then I hit delete. No reply, no comfort. No, we'll figure it out. I sat there in the quiet of my new place. No ocean view, no designer anything, just 4 honest walls and my own breathing. For the first time in years, her crisis wasn't my responsibility. Ava didn't crawl away. She hired a shark. He came in sharp suit, sharp smile, sharp lies. He painted me as the cold, controlling husband who isolated her, who withheld money, who abandoned his poor, misunderstood wife. I sat there and let him talk. Howard did too, hands folded, face blank, just waiting. When it was our turn, Howard didn't raise his voice. He slid a folder across. Prenup, financial records, transfer logs to her art fund, dates, amounts, all the little thefts she thought were invisible. Then he pulled out his phone and said, Your Honor, with permission, we'd like to play a short recording. The judge nodded. And there it was, her voice, clear as day, filling the courtroom. Grant is just a bank. You don't leave a bank until you have another one lined up. Followed by her laughing. I watched the judge's expression change. The room shifted. In that moment, it wasn't my word against hers anymore. It was her own words finally standing next to me. The ruling itself was quick. The judge went through the motions, but the conclusion was simple. The prenup was valid. The evidence of infidelity was clear. Ava wasn't getting half of everything. She was getting exactly what she'd agreed to years ago if she ever did what she just did. A small amount. Enough to live, not enough to keep pretending she'd built any of it. She tried to protest. Her lawyer tried to push back, but there was nothing left to argue. No money, no case, no story that survived that recording. By the end, even he was done with her. He leaned in, said something I couldn't hear, and walked away first. I left the courthouse holding one thin stack of paper that said I was no longer her husband. Walking down those steps, I realized something. I hadn't lost my wife that day. I'd lost her the night she decided I was just a bank. This was just the day the law finally admitted it. News about Ava didn't come from stalking. It just trickled in through people who still moved in both worlds. She was back living with her mother in a small apartment. No ocean view, no designer candles, just thin walls and shared space. She'd taken a job at a real estate agency, selling vacation rentals to tourists, walking strangers through other people's dream homes for a commission. The car she loved, the bags, the shoes. One by one, they showed up online. Resale sites. Lightly used. Excellent condition. All those status symbols she once screamed about now reduced to listings with a price tag and a DM for details. She used to glide through town in Uber Black. Now I heard she was taking the bus down streets she once looked at from the back seat of a hired car. And the people who called her Queen? They went silent the moment her lifestyle dried up. I won't lie, there was a part of me that felt a dark satisfaction. But mostly it just looked like exactly what it was. The cost of her choices, finally billed in full. My life, on the other hand, got smaller in all the right ways. Most mornings now, I sit on the balcony of my new place in Charleston with a mug of coffee, watching a city I've known for years feel brand new without the weight of pretending. Inside, the apartment looks like me. Books stacked where they're actually read, not staged. Architectural drawings rolled out on the table. A couch that's comfortable first and aesthetic, never. No sharp, cold art screaming for attention. No furniture bought just so someone could post it. I still work a lot, probably always will. But it's different now. I'm not grinding to keep up with someone else's image. I'm restoring buildings because I love the way old brick feels under my hand, the way a saved structure stands in a world that tears everything down. At night, the quiet in my home isn't the cold, tense silence I used to know. It's soft, honest. For the first time in a very long time, I walk through my front door and think one simple word: home. Let me say something to you straight, man to man. Men don't actually want that much. We want a safe place to sleep, someone who's on our side, and a bit of respect when we walk through our own front door. That's it. Not jets, not yachts, not whatever Instagram is selling this week. I used to think I wanted to give Ava the whole world. Turns out she didn't want a world that was real. She wanted an exit from it. For a long time, I let her call me a provider like it was a compliment while treating me like a background character with a credit card. Not anymore. I'm not a bank. I'm not an ATM. I'm a man. And this time, I don't just say that. I live like it. I protect what I build. I don't beg to be valued. And I don't stay where my presence is treated like a bill that's overdue. If any of this hits you in the chest, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. Every now and then, someone mentions seeing Ava. A buddy told me he spotted her at a bar. Cheap wine, tired face, talking too loud. She was telling anyone who'd listen, "My life was stolen from me." That's her version. In her story, she's the victim of a man who blindsided her, a system that punished her, friends who abandoned her. She still talks like someone came into her perfect world one night and robbed her at gunpoint. But I was there. I know the truth. Her life didn't get stolen. It got traded. Traded loyalty for excitement, respect for attention, a solid life for the promise of something shinier, with no foundation under it. I don't feel joy when I hear about her now. I don't feel pity either. I feel distance, like I'm listening to a stranger's story. Because in the end, nothing was stolen. It was forfeited. When I look back now, it feels like a straight line. From that night in Newport, to the bouquet dying alone on the hallway table, to the hotel room, the courtroom, and finally, this quiet apartment that actually feels like mine. Here's what I've learned. Sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is walk away silently. Not slam doors, not send long texts, not beg someone to see your worth. You can't force anyone to respect you. You can't argue someone into loving you right, but you can stop staying in places where you're treated like you're lucky just to be there. I rebuilt my life from the ground up. This time, I built it for me. If this story hit something in your chest, maybe it's time to ask yourself a hard question. What are you still building on a rotten foundation? And how much longer are you going to call it home? If you're still listening, hit follow, leave a comment, and stay with me. We've got more to talk about.